But I teach you this and myself. Do your best before you leave, as you leave, to forget everything and everyone, especially your nafs and your requirements and your needs and your wants and your demands and your opinions and your rights and your kada. Be one who gives and forgives and gives and forgives and gives and forgives, and who doesn't know anything. And you enter the haram, there will be challenges all the time in the bus, kada, the sound, the luggage, the kada. Many people who do that, dhikr is completely forgotten. And it is all nafs. Well, my luggage was going to steal it. وَهَكَذَا وَهَكَذَا. Take your luggage, and with your luggage in your heart, if it is taken or lost, that's part of the journey. So don't do things or don't take things with you that will enslave you if you lose them. Don't build anything, attach yourself to anything that if you lose or you don't have around, you're going to be angry. Don't. If it's lost, khalas, alhamdulillah. My qalb is with me. Wherever I go, it's with me. That I cannot lose to my nafs or to shaitan. That I cannot lose. Because part of the thing of the process when you go to those groups, your passport, that's all you need. They are kept for you. They are stored for you. They are in safety for you. The rest is nothing, even for the journey, administratively speaking, is necessary. Nothing. Not even your money, in my opinion, is necessary. Because everything else you can get. Keep that in mind. Trust Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah will test you by losing things, by having things. He will. And it depends on how you respond. And Allah then will give you a special gift. And that most special gift is peace in your heart in the midst of what is perceived as chaos. You will be like floating in the midst of all of that, at peace no matter what happens. That's all the most beautiful gifts, inshallah ta'ala. So when you're in that situation, wherever, hotels, kada, stay focused. And then you go into Mecca, you may, it's also said in a mustahab or sunnah, to perform ghusl. Remember, without using any scented material of shampoo or anything, including toothpaste. Anybody who says you can use it, if you follow my advice, do not do that. Toothpaste is tib. Tib is scent on your body. Your mouth is your body. And if you did that, that's scented soap inside your mouth. Anyone who says otherwise to you, and there are those who say otherwise, that's lack of fiqh. Don't do that. And that's only for a couple of hours, some hours so far. Because once you start your ihram at the miqat, and most of you will be in the plane if you're coming directly to Jeddah, and then from then on you have 10 hours or so, or 12 hours, or 13, or 8 hours or so of ihram only until you finish your umrah. Maybe let's say 20 hours even. That's all. And what's 24 hours? What's 48 hours? Remember the ihram of people in the old days, and there were no cars and no planes and etc. How long would they be? Some of them in ihram? Days and weeks. Especially those who do Hajj Qiran. For example, Hajj Ifrad, they come from India or China or Africa or somewhere, or Asia somewhere, and they come and they are in Ihram, in Miqat, they come in the month of Shawwal. And once you enter into Ihram, you cannot remove Ihram until you finish your Hajj. So those who start their Ihram in Shawwal, because the month of Hajj are Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, and Dhul Hijjah. So you may start your Hajj in Shawwal, the first of Shawwal if you want. Second, the third. There are those who do that, who have done that before. And they stay in Ihram for 2 months. Did you hear that? They stay in Ihram. They stayed in Ihram for 2 months, 1 month, a month and a half. Let alone, 2 weeks or a week or whatever. And we are in Ihram for at most, after all the luxuries we enjoy, for the Umrah, we are in Ihram at most for 1 day. And for Hajj, we are in Ihram, if we are in Ihram on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, Yawm al-Tarwiyah, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th, at most 3 days in contemporary times. So please keep that in mind and be grateful to Allah for what we have and say, no, my relationship with Allah deserves more than this indulging of my nafs. My nafs, each nafs has its demands, and at each time, each environment, each society, each age has nafsani requirements in accordance to that age. And we in this age, and we have, I think, challenges that didn't exist before, and we indulge our nufus very much. So we stay in that until, alhamdulillah, we enter the Masjid al-Haram again. We enter it the way you should enter a masjid, but with greater reverence. No, this is Masjid al-Haram. This is not Masjid Plano, with all due respect. This is not Masjid whatever, New York, or Masjid New Delhi, or any masjid in the world. This is Al-Masjid al-Haram. Al-Masjid al-Haram. So if I used to enter, and if I remember, if I am a person in this dunya, outside of Hajj, when I enter the masjid, I enter casually, I will not be a person who respects Al-Masjid al-Haram. And that's your fault. And there are many of us who enter masajid without hiba, without reverence, without mahaba, without haiba, without haiba or mahaba, without reverence. And those of us like that, this is the consequence. You will be deprived from the reverence in the haram of Allah Azza wa Jal, most likely. But if we enter every masjid of Allah Azza wa Jal with the reverence due to that place, Allah will instill in our qulub greater reverence before we enter His masjid, let alone when we enter His masjid. Greater reverence. Ya'lam Allah. Some would feel so, they are overtaken by a spiritual hal of reverence and overwhelmingness. They cry and cannot enter first the masjid out of reverence, that they are unworthy, before finally Allah Azza wa Jal puts something in their hearts and enables them to enter with this utmost reverence. Bismillah, a'udhu billahi al-azim wa biwajhihi al-kareem wa sultanihi al-qadeem min al-shaytan al-rajim. Bismillah, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, Allahumma aftah li abwab rahmatik. And then you enter, and then you see the Kaaba. Once you see the Kaaba, again, that I cannot teach you. It's your hal. What you were here before will be shown there. Hopefully, with more rahmah from Allah Azza wa Jal. And you stop at that moment. That's sunnah or mustahab. And you raise your hands. The feeling that you will be having there, that's what you will have or not have. And you turn to Allah Azza wa Jal in dua at that moment. In tawheed, in tawheed, in tawheed, in tawheed, and in dua. And there are some ad'iyah that were taught by the ulama, some related to some of the Sahaba like Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab and others, radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'een. And you do that. In overall, what that moment will inspire you to say. And of course, most of us need to learn things and memorize ad'iyah and memorize these things. You should do all of that. And in the books of manasik, alhamdulillah, of our early ulama, whatever you find there is khair. Regardless of what others hear you telling, no, this was not done, this was not said, ignore all of that. When it comes to dua, every dua that our ulama have mentioned, you use. In addition to what you feel inside of you. Because that's shara'i, and that's what the fiqh teaches and the shara teaches as well. And this is not the moment for detailed conversations. So at that moment, that's what you do, and that's where you stop the talbiyah at that moment. And you walk reverently towards that place. Again, despite the challenges, keep all those challenges of moving, of where it is, of kada, but do that composed. You can still do that, and you don't have to do like everybody does. You can still find, you can still search, you can still ask, but still being reverent of that moment and patient. But if you don't want special experience, then be like everybody else. You can't do that. So, be composed, wait, watch. And then you start tawaf, and starting tawaf, everybody knows. Nobody, I need not tell you now, tawaf is counterclockwise. Because when you go there, try it otherwise. And then you will know what happens. I need not tell you what happens. You will know. Then you will have experiential knowledge. You don't have only intellectual knowledge. You will have experiential knowledge of what happens. So you perform your tawaf. And the tawaf, we start at Al-Hajj al-Aswad. Try to go to Al-Hajj al-Aswad directly. That's another experiential knowledge. But is it impossible? No, it's not impossible. Allah Azza wa Jalla is Kareem. So, if we're unable to be there, then from far, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. And if you can be there and standing in dua, do that. Do that. The dua that comes to your heart, and the dua that would come perhaps to my heart at that moment is what I'm about to do. Ya Allah, this is the beginning of my Hajj, factually. This is Umrah, of course. And I plead to Allah to let this Umrah be one that is mabrura, completely. And we begin our tawaf. And in tawaf, dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, and dua, and salah ala nabi, constantly. Don't push. Don't push those who push you. Don't hurt those who hurt you. Be forgiving. Don't raise your voice. Be kind. Otherwise, shaitan takes over. And Hajj Mabrur is gone. That's what you need to do. Don't argue. Those who tell you you're wrong, say Jazakallahu khairan. Those who tell you don't do that, you can, Jazakallahu khairan. And you keep going. As long as you are doing what we are telling you to do, inshallah ta'ala. Keep doing that. And what I'm telling you to do is to give and to forgive. And you want to keep your heart with Allah Azza wa Jal. You don't want anything to distract you. Keep that. And as you are in tawaf, either you're looking down or you're looking at the Kaaba. If you hear some people telling you don't look at the Kaaba, personally I do not know where that comes from. Because looking at the Kaaba is itself ibadah. Is itself ibadah. In tawaf and looking at the Kaaba and pondering the meaning of all of that, as we mentioned yesterday, in those inner dimensions of tawaf. Keep that all in mind. And alhamdulillah, you go tawaf, and at the Rukn al-Yamani, which is the corner before Rukn al-Hajar al-Aswad. You know what I mean? Rukn al-Yamani is the corner before the corner where the black stone is. It's before it as you go counterclockwise. That's a Rukn al-Yamani, and there also you wipe over it تمسح عليه بسم الله الله أكبر وتدعو if you can, you implore Allah Azza wa Jal. The opinion of many ulama, and there are texts that support that, you may even kiss the Rukn al-Yamani. Some say do not, it's bid'ah. That's wrong, but that's an opinion. And there you will find those young people who are assigned there by the authorities of the masjid and so on, not to allow people to kiss by Rukn al-Yamani. Bid'ah, you can't do that. Unfortunately, that is, they should have said this is our opinion in the way we understand some of the ulama, etc., etc. They're following an opinion of some ulama. It's not even the opinion of an entire madhab. So Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala says it is mustahab, and there are texts about that of the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that are authentic, that Imam al-Bayhaqi relates and others. You can all do that inshallah ta'ala, and keep doing that each time. And when you come back again, we finish one circumambulation. Again, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, al-Hajar al-Aswad, dua if you can, and so on, and you keep going, وهكذا, and keep going. Tawaf, in ibadah, in dhikr, in dua, in the spirit we mentioned yesterday, which I'm not going to repeat for the lack of time. And then when we finish our tawaf, what do? We go perform 2 rakat anywhere in the masjid. But the sunnah is, preferably if we can, but it's very crowded, right behind Maqamu Ibrahim, somewhere behind, and then somewhere behind Maqamu Ibrahim, and if possible in those early days also to wipe over and to kiss Maqamu Ibrahim for tabarruk, as used to be done in the early generations of our Salaf. Now it is all covered because they want to preserve it, alhamdulillah, and then they don't allow even to touch the glass for tabarruk, which is their opinion also on this matter, those who are there. إلى ذلك. And in those 2 rakat, the sunnah is to recite قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ and قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. And to recite before you begin those 2 rakat, to recite what Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. That's a command from Allah Azza wa Jalla to take as a musalla the maqam of Ibrahim alayhi salam for tabarruk. Indeed, as we mentioned with some details yesterday. And then after that, again the sunnah is to go to drink from Zamzam, and we mentioned many spiritual meanings, alhamdulillah, yesterday, and how to do that, and what type of dua, and so on. We drink from Zamzam preferably facing the Kaaba as we're standing. Even we drink standing, as that was in that case also, I think, a practice of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and you may of course perform it sitting. In general, we drink water while we sit preferably, but there we may do it standing facing the Qibla as well, facing the Kaaba, and dua. And after that, what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did after that is actually he went back to Al-Hajar al-Aswad and again paid homage and kissed it. And if you get to it at all, you hold and you do sujood inside. Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, Salah ala Nabi, and dua, and then you kiss as well, if you have the ability to do that. Because once you enter there, it's silent. SubhanAllah, it feels silent. And you feel like eternity. Little time feels like a long time. And then the others then they start pulling you. It depends. And then if you cannot remember, just from far, alhamdulillah, or you can just touch the outside, or touch, kiss, wipe off your face, or if you can't, just point as well. He did that, and then he went for a sa'i بين الصفا والمروة. And then say بين الصفا والمروة, again reverently, take your time, reverently. And in the spirit of what we mentioned yesterday of details of the inner dimensions of sa'i بين الصفا والمروة. We go to Safa first, we climb up in that spirit that we mentioned yesterday, and we face the Kaaba. You will not see it. In those earlier days, there were no buildings, no high rises. You will see the Kaaba from the hill of Safa. And you face there, and you raise your hand as Rasulullah did, and you perform dua. Do of that as much as you can. You will find that most people do not do that. They keep just going around. You don't have to do that, but it's a sunnah. It's good to do that, and most people don't do that. And if everybody did that, it would be also impossible, because they will have to stop, and we have thousands and thousands of people going. That will be hurtful. Alhamdulillah that most people don't do that. May Allah reward them, because they leave in that to others who want to do that and can do that, and they do that for the few. So don't say, oh look, these are not following sunnah. If they were following sunnah, you wouldn't be able to stand there. Nobody will be able to stand there because of those waves of human beings. You stop and it's stampede. Since most do not stop, that's why you can do that. You can have time with a few of you or so to be standing there in dua. Keep that in mind and pray for those who are unable to do that at that moment, inshallah, for the ability to do that myself. And then when you finish again, you walk, and then you run, and then you walk in the spirit we mentioned yesterday and what it means. And you come to Marwa, you do the same thing on Marwa with the same spirit we mentioned yesterday. And then you keep doing that. So from Safa to Marwa is one round, though it is not a round, it's one shawt. So not one and come back, because you want to use your logic and you think you're a faqih and you understand the text by your own self. Then one round has to be go and come back. And that's some fools who want to understand hadith on their own without having recourse to the practice of Rasulullah and the reports of the ulama. They keep doing that. They end up doing 14 times, and that's a bid'ah munkara. You do that which Rasulullah didn't do. If you didn't know, that's one thing. But if you did it on purpose, no, I don't care what Bukhari says, I don't care what the ulama says. This is around. And use your English or your language, and I have to do it this way. Then that's munkar wal iyad billah. Munkar wal iyad billah. Wallahu ta'ala alam. And then when we finish that, in that spirit, remember the spirit of, and if those are doing wrong, don't pay attention. Unless you're a scholar who has hopefully a composed heart, who will know how to do it the right way without losing his heart. If a scholar is going to do something and loses his heart, don't say anything either. And then when we finish that, this is Umrah. And Safa, Al-Sa'i bain Al-Safa and Marwa is rukn of Umrah, except in the Hanafi madhab it is wajib. In the Jumhur it is rukn. Right? Then after that, part of Umrah, now this is Tamattu Hajj, we do our hair. Either trimming or shaving. For the sisters, as we have said, take your hair and then cut like an inch of all of that together. For man, you may trim or you may shave. Since it is Hajj, many ulama say you leave shaving for Hajj, so that you have hair to shave in those few days left. This is not somebody who came like in Shawwal, right? Came in Shawwal and did Umrah, and then he's going to be there until Dhul Hijjah. That person may shave, because the hair will grow in 2 months after that. If they are young, some old people of us, they don't have hair, and there is no hair to grow, or it grows very slowly. Ila ridhalik. So keep that all in mind. And those who have no hair, the sunnah is to do what? To take the razor and to symbolically pass it over the head. Symbolically pass it over the head. Those who are bald and have no hair. Once we have done that, the Umrah is completed. Shaving off the head, in accordance to the Jumhur of the ulama, is wajib. Is wajib. Except the Shafi'i school. In the Shafi'i school, the prevailing opinion that is also rukn. So what did we say about sa'i between al-Safa and al-Marwa? It is a rukn in accordance with the Jumhur, and to the Ahnaf it is wajib. Shaving the hair to the Jumhur, it is, including the Ahnaf, it is wajib, but it is rukn for the Shafi'is. But the point is that it is obligatory. Simply it means rukn, it means if you left Hajj, you left Mecca and you're gone and you didn't do that, then your Hajj is invalid in the Shafi'i sense. But in the Jumhuri sense, if you did that and you missed and you forgot somehow, then there is an atonement for it that can be rectified by offering a sacrifice to be used for the poor and needy in Mecca, to be distributed amongst the needy and the poor in Mecca. Nowadays, as you know, there are institutions that are official and sanctioned by the government and so on that take care of those things. You go and pay them and tell them, this is what I want to do for this, for that, and inshallah once you do that, your responsibility is assumed and they bear the rest of the responsibility, inshallah ta'ala. Unless you want to do it yourself and you want to spend time, and that I think you still may do, I'm not sure, in these days, and go find a goat or a sheep or a camel or so, and then slaughter that yourself and distribute the meat amongst the needy and the poor yourself, and so on and so forth. That's a different issue, and that takes long work. And nowadays Muslims and people don't have the energy and the strength and the dynamism of people 14 centuries ago who could do that. Indeed, even of a century ago, who could do that in the same, in a couple of hours, let alone in one day. So now the Umrah is finished. And once the Umrah is finished as a mutamattih, you are released completely from your ihram. Completely from your ihram. In other words, everything that was haram during ihram becomes halal after ihram. And do I need to repeat what is mahdhur, what should be avoided and is haram during ihram? Should I need to repeat it, or we mentioned it, most of it yesterday, if not all of it? Anybody doesn't know here what we should not do? Khalas. So we are released from ihram completely. And then we are there. If you are there, you may do many things. But never lose focus of your purpose there. You have not performed Hajj yet. So don't release yourself in a sense of I'm released from my awareness of Allah Azza wa Jal, my responsibility, my desire for Hajj Mabrur, my desire to liberate my heart. Please don't forget that. And therefore I indulge into shopping malls and luxuries and this and that, and forget dhikr and forget dua and forget salah, or just do the usual. On the contrary, it's an opportunity for khalwa with Allah in the midst of people in the haram of Allah Azza wa Jal, where every salah is worth how many? 100,000 salah. So if I'm there and I spend time doing some other things instead of 100,000 rak'ah for each rak'ah, I am a fool. I am really deprived. I am really deprived. And there are people who are deprived amongst us. Do what you know is right. If others don't do that, don't ridicule them, but think in your heart, maybe they have an excuse. Maybe they have an excuse. I don't have an excuse, I know. Salah, 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 salah. And tawaf, extra tawaf. Extra tawaf, extra tawaf. Extra tawaf and salah behind the maqam and dua, and be there day and night as much as you can. And never thinking back of dunya. Some people, after that, they go to Medina. They perform the ziyarah because they are there for many days. Many groups have this. They go first to Mecca, they perform the Umrah, then they go to Medina. They perform the ziyarah, and then they stay there also 3 or 4 days or so, and then they come back for Hajj again. until the 8th day of the Hijjah, day of Tarwiyah. We re-enter into a state of Ihram. The 8th day of the Hijjah, the day of Tarwiyah. Of course, you're with your group. They tell you that because depending on when they will declare in Saudi Arabia the beginning of the month, I don't want to re-enter into that. This is not about Ramadan, that's about Hajj. They are there, Hajj is there, so you follow what is there. You don't follow what you think is right. You're there, they say the first of the Hijjah is this day, you say the first of the Hijjah is that day. As a Hajji, that's what you do. And you're not the one responsible for that there, nor the mujtahid independent scholar, nor the qadi, nor kada, to say or do otherwise. So you do that. And on the 8th day of the Hijjah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us to re-enter into our state of Ihram. Again, remember everything we said before applies in the spirit and in the fiqh. In the fiqh, what? Quickly, what are the first things to do? The fiqh said, ghusl. Ghusl. And entering into a state of Ihram. And we should not enter into a state of Ihram until we have put our Ihram clothes. Because if you enter into a state of Ihram and you're wearing your regular clothes, then you violated your Ihram. So wear your clothing Ihram and enter into a state of Ihram. And in this moment you say, Labbaik Allahumma Hajjah. Labbaik Allahumma Hajjah. Because you did say, through your tamattu Hajj, Labbaik Allahumma Umrah mutamatti'an biha ila al-Hajj, wa Labbaik Allahumma Umrah. In your mind is Hajj tamattu, and now you say, Labbaik Allahumma Hajjah. And you enter into your state of Ihram from where you are in Mecca. From where you are in Mecca, if you have not left Mecca. From where you are, you do not need to go back to a miqat. If you have stayed in Mecca and you have not left Mecca, you re-enter into a state of Ihram from Mecca. You do not have to go to Al-Tan'im, to Masjid al-Sayyida Aisha, or to Al-Ji'rana, or to... You do not. From where you are in Mecca, as long as you have not left the Haram of Mecca. You re-enter into a state of Ihram from Mecca. And begin Talbiyah again in the same way we have mentioned, and in the same spirit we have mentioned. If there are questions, leave them for later, inshallah ta'ala. Where are we going? To Muna. We're going to Muna. On that 8th day, to go to Muna is a sunnah. It's neither wajib, nor shart, nor rukn. It is a sunnah. Keep that in mind, just in case certain logistical problems also happen. Keep that in mind if it is beyond control or so, and you ended up missing that. That's not wajib, that's not rukn, that's not shart. But you don't want to miss that. Please keep that in mind. You don't want to miss any sunnah or any mustahab or any mandub to the best of your ability. But if circumstances beyond you warrant that, alhamdulillah, khalas, this is qaddar Allah ma sha'a fa'al. It's not wajib, it's not shart, it's not rukn, it's not shart, for instance. And we go there on the 8th day of the Hijjah, and the sunnah is to be there and to perform Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha, separately, without Jam'a. That's the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's what he did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in Mina. You pray Dhuhr on time, but qasran, however, without itmam, qasran. You perform 2 rak'ah. Dhuhr, 2 rak'at Asr, and 3 Maghrib, and 2 Isha. In Muna. And you go there, alhamdulillah. Now you are in Talbiyah constantly, the spirit that we spoke about. Now all of that continues, that spirit with the Talbiyah and all the meanings we mentioned, they continue on and on until you come back to Mina after Arafat. That spirit continues, and we spoke of some of those details yesterday. So, there is, in Mina there is Masjid Khayf, remember. Masjid al-Khayf. And I mentioned something about it today. And the significance of being there and performing salah there, and the barakah that is there, and the specialness that is there, the fact that Anbiya, 70 Nabi, their burial ground is in that space, in that masjid, and they have performed salawat in accordance with those authentic hadith there as well. Alayhim salamullahi wa salawatuh. Very special. Keep in mind that. If you can do that, alhamdulillah, you can go there, even if it is once or so. Sometimes people who are in Mina, they are very far. It's huge space. And to walk to Masjid al-Khayf, that can take maybe an hour for some to walk. For some who are very close, that's alhamdulillah rahmah. To walk 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or sometimes, some of the people who go from the United States, and because of, the packages they choose, it's like 2 minutes walk. But some can end up even an hour away walk or more, because it is in the center where the Jamarat are, close to where the Jamarat are, all in that vicinity. And we stay there, alhamdulillah, in that spirit, remember, of giving, of forgiving, of patience, of dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, of salah ila dhalik, until the next day. And what is the next day? The day. The 9th day of the Hijjah, the day of Arafat. And what is the sunnah? Is to perform Fajr where? In Mina, in Muna. And then, what was the sunnah? To wait until after the sun rises. But that's not for everybody, unfortunately, to do, depending on your group and what they have decided and what they have chosen and elected to do, ila dhalik, especially if you cannot move alone and you have to be with the group and you have to drive, to ride and so on. So you do what they do, because in some madhahib, waiting until after the sun rises, it's sunnah, it's not wajib. So if some people leave before that, that is jaiz, So that's how you find people leave much before that as well, and they leave even much before Salatul Fajr, some of them, ila dhalik. It's not haram, but it's not the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then you go in that spirit. You're riding. Most of you, if not all of you, will be riding. Those who will choose to walk, if your group allows you to walk. Nowadays, I think they have trains, right? The trains now, they have trains, which probably is going to make things much more accommodating and much more easier for those who ride, inshallah ta'ala, and faster even. So you go with everybody, inshallah ta'ala, in that spirit. Again, keep the spirit of losing your nafs rather than giving your nafs. Again, please keep that in mind all the time. And if you are in talbiyah and in the spirit of talbiyah, as we mentioned, it will help us lose our nafs and be peaceful and be kind and be forgiving, ila dhalik, inshallah ta'ala. And then we arrive in Arafat. And the sunnah is not to enter into Arafat directly, but that's what you will do. Because again, logistically, it's difficult to do otherwise for everybody. Just like I said for Safa, it's rahmah that not everybody stands there, otherwise it's impossible. Same thing now because of the millions of people that are there, millions of people that are there. Sometimes on the day of Arafat, because including those who are clandestines and so on, you end up with like sometimes 3 to 5 million people. And in Arafat, they all have to be there at the same time. So, the sunnah is Rasulullah ﷺ, on the way he stopped, before he entered into Arafat, in Namira. Namira is not where the masjid of Namira is. Outside of that, he stopped and rested for a while, and ate something. And there was a tent pitched for him. Most people don't know this sunnah. And then after that, then he moved. He rode the camel, and then he moved to Urana, to Wadi Urana. Now Wadi Urana now is where Masjid Namira is. And Masjid Namira, part of it is in Urana, part of it is in Arafat. If you ever enter Masjid Namira, it's a huge space. You see clear signs and green lights and signs that says, here begins Arafat. Here ends, in Arabic and I think in other languages, here ends Urana. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave his famous khutbah, and it was on a day of Jumu'ah, but it was not khutbah Jumu'ah, it was khutbah al-Hajj. He gave it, and he prayed Dhuhr and Asr, Jam'an. He gave it in Urana, Wadi Urana, outside of Arafat, before you enter Arafat. That's why the masjid now where people go is called Masjid Namira, is built partly in Arafat, partly in Urana. And the imam that is assigned by the government to lead that salah and that khutbah actually gives the khutbah in the side of Urana. That's where the minbar is and the pulpit is, and that's where the dignitaries, quote unquote, who come there, they are given special space. That's where it occurs. But most people don't know this, which is sort of rahmah nowadays. What happens? Most people crowd into the side of Urana, of the side of Arafat, because that's what they know, you have to be in Arafat. So it's super dense in the Arafat side, the masjid. And if you are able to go through that, and once you enter Arafat, Urana, you can breathe. It's so spacious and so less dense, and least number of people are there. Because it seems the only explanation I had is they don't know. And yet that's the sunnah. And to attend Urana if you can, otherwise, alhamdulillah, you are in Arafat, you are with the group, and the group leads. They have a group leader and an imam who will lead salah, inshallah ta'ala, in Arafat. That's all jaiz, but that's not the sunnah. And of course, the overwhelming majority of the Hujjaj do that in Arafat with their own leading groups. They do it that way. But actually, the sunnah is in Urana. And then he, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, after that, after he finished salah, the khutbah and salah, and he gave the khutbah, and the adhan was after the khutbah, not like Salatul Jumu'ah. He gave the khutbah, because that's why it's not Khutbatul Jumu'ah, and it was on the day of Jumu'ah, so it was not Khutbatul Jumu'ah, as some said. So he first gave the khutbah, then the adhan was called, and then the iqamah for Dhuhr, and then they finished, and then another iqamah for Asr, and they performed Asr. And then after that, he wrote, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he entered into Arafat. And he entered into Arafat and went to the famous Jabal al-Rahmah, that you know, Arafat and Jabal al-Rahmah, that's filled with people. You can't see rocks. It's all filled with people. And then there is a sign that, you know, that they built on top just to identify that hill of al-Rahmah that has no spiritual significance, that is special. The entire place of Arafat is special. Masjid al-Rahmah, Jabal al-Rahmah is very special because that's where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood. Did he stand on the top of the mountain? No. Did he stand somewhere on the rocks up? No. He was at the bottom of that hill. In those days there were huge boulders there on the bottom of the hill. On those boulders he stood, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and faced Qibla and was in dhikr and answering sometimes some of the questions that come to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in giving instructions to the believing men and women about their deen. And he stood there, the most elect of the creatures of Allah Azza wa Jal, under the sun, nothing covering his head, in dhikr, in ibadah, and the ibadah of La ilaha illallah especially. And I need not repeat, because we did mention about the virtues of Arafat and the interdimensional aspects of the ibadah in Arafat, which we mentioned yesterday, and all what that means, and with which spirit we should do that. A lot of tawheed, la ilaha illallah, and talbiyah, and I would say in addition of salah ala nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, and dua, and not minding anything else. And don't go do like others, wal-iyadhu billah, who eat there and throw garbage, and throw their bottles, and kada, and even worse than that. Did I mention it yesterday? Let me not repeat it. So please don't do like that. Don't do like that. Revere that place and wish that they would give me the professional, full-time job to clean myself, to clean that place. What an honor it would be. I will clean it with my face. And yet people of us, Hujjaj, Allahu Akbar, the place where the most beautiful of human beings of Allah Azza wa Jal walked and sat and prayed. Ila ridhalik. And any place in the Western world, what a place, any historic place is kept meticulously clean, and people themselves feel uncomfortable to throw dust, let alone garbage. And you Muslims, in the space most sanctified on earth, most beautiful, walked by the most beautiful human beings on earth and the brightest of minds on earth, we walk there as though we are better than they even. And we walk there as though this is our property. And even your property should be kept clean. Total loss of spiritual intelligence. I would say even here total loss of rational intelligence, let alone spiritual intelligence. May Allah forgive us. May Allah forgive us. بما كسبت أيدينا. Until the sun sets, and we spoke about all what that meant. And after the sun sets, with that significance we mentioned yesterday, and in that spirit I hope inshallah ta'ala, then began sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to leave in reverence and quietude towards Muzdalifah after the sun had set. And then he moved to Muzdalifah with that quietude and still doing what? Talbiyah, and in that spirit, however tired you are. If you're too tired, you stop and you do it with your heart. If you walk, it's good. You walk, you can't sleep. Of course, not everybody can walk, but those who can walk, it's the most beautiful experience. Despite the hundreds of thousands of people who are there walking as well, it's much more rewarding, in my opinion, in general, than riding. But those who are elderly or sick or so, alhamdulillah, or weak, riding is probably better for them, indeed. So, until you arrive in Muzdalifah, they will take you. You don't have to do anything because they will take you to Muzdalifah. By the time you get there, hopefully you get there in due time in Muzdalifah. Some will not because of the congested buses, ila dhalik. With the changes they have made, I do not know whether there are trains to Muzdalifah or not, ila dhalik. Hopefully all of that would improve the situation. And you enter into Muzdalifah, and there the first thing you do is Maghrib and Isha. Maghrib 3 rakat and Isha 2 rakat. If you keep the spirit we mentioned in Arafat and focus on dhikr and not on other things, you will not eat much. And if you'll eat things that are light instead of sometimes the sumptuous food that is there of those who go from such places as, rich packages, expensive packages. Sometimes they have a lot of food, rice, meat, and very tempting. Drinks, and people eat and enjoy. It's halal, it's not wrong. But you will have a problem later. You smile, do you know what I'm talking about? Then you'll have a problem later to release yourself. And in Muzdalifah, it's all in the open. And everywhere there are people. everywhere there are people. On every square foot, even in the hills, there are people. And there are stations where there are restrooms. But when you have millions there, restrooms are super crowded. So guess what? You know the rest of the story. But if you keep dhikr and you keep spiritual nourishment, the most you will need is to perform wudu. And that you can perform anywhere, without going out, without needing the outdoors. And the worst in this case you could need is urinating. La haya fi din. That is more it's easier to deal with than to deal with the other alternative of having to defecate. So keep that in mind. And if you are in that dhikr and in that hal, you will not feel attracted to that much food. So if you need to eat, take with you, I would say, an apple or a fruit, an apple that does not, something that does not contribute to producing that thing which will become a hindrance to you, inshallah ta'ala, and suffice yourself with the feeding of dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, of talbiyah ila dhalik, for you will find food around you all the time. Even when you're walking, if you're walking, there are merchants to sell food all along, from Mecca, even as you walk from Mecca to Arafat, and inside Arafat and back in Muzdalifah, and you will find all of that, and breakfast and coffee and tea, whatever style, Indian style, Pakistani style, Afghani style, Arab style, all styles, on the way. Of course there are there people who alhamdulillah want to, they may do that, but you don't have to buy. You don't have to eat if you want to keep yourself safe in that sense. Be very, very moderate and very careful when you are undergoing that trip, inshallah ta'ala. And when you are in Arafat in your tents, in many of those tents there are restrooms available, so make sure you do that there before you leave to Arafat. And as long as you also in Arafat, before you leave Arafat, when you leave to Muzdalifah, and when you were in Arafat, you should have eaten the way I mentioned to you, fruits and necessary things, but nothing that should accumulate to produce discharges. And then we are there, inshallah, in Muzdalifah, and we rest there in dhikr, in dua. And some say, and the Jumhur say, you may, inshallah ta'ala, in that surrounding, collect your pebbles, because you're going to Mina or Muna, and the pebbles to collect them for all 4 days or for 1 day, it's up to you. Or you collect none from there until you get there and do your best to find pebbles, because nowadays Mina is not like it used to be a century ago, let alone 14 centuries ago. It's all paved and all of that. In those earlier days, it was not paved. There are pebbles in Muna, so you can pick pebbles. And so the muftis who say no, it's bid'ah to collect pebbles from Muzdalifah, and it's an overstatement, because it's not proper fiqh. Because in those days, Rasulullah ﷺ, indeed, in accordance to what we know of reports, he did not collect, I think, his pebbles from Muzdalifah, but on the way to Mina, he collected them, because on the way it was all also dust and sand and pebbles, and in Mina is itself, and used to be itself like that, mountains and rocks and pebbles. The jamarat, they're not paved, there are pebbles, so you can pick them anywhere. But nowadays you cannot. It's very challenging to find pebbles in Mina, or even on the way. So it is fine, alhamdulillah, it is proper, and that's a practice of our salaf also, to do that on the way or in Muzdalifah, inshallah ta'ala, to pick those, 7 times how many? 7 times how many? 7 times? No. 7 plus 7 times each day. Remember those 3 days? Each day is 3 times. So 7 plus 21 times 3. 21 times 3 plus 7. That's what it is. How many that is? Huh? It should be 78, yes. Yeah. So 7 plus 21 times 3. 21 times 3 is 63 plus 7 is 68, right? 70, yeah, 70, I'm sorry, 70, what did I say? 70, again, because on the day of Eid, because you woke up, from Muzdalifah, you leave it on the day of Eid, the 10th day. On that day you throw at one place only, 7. And then the rest of the days, 11, 12, and 13, you throw each day 3 times. Each day, 3 times. 7 times 3, 21. 21 times 3 is 63. 63 plus 7 is 70. And get some more, just in case. But no more than a pea size or a chickpea size. Green pea size or a chickpea size. No more than that, inshallah ta'ala. And then you continue your dhikr and your talbiyah and you walk until you get to Muna. Until you get back to Muna, and you have your tents wherever you are. Either you can non-stop go until you do the Jamarat, especially if you did not burden yourself with equipment and with bags and this when you went to Arafat. If you went free in Arafat with nothing except your ihram and that which is necessary, so you have nothing to carry, maybe except maybe a backpack which is very light because you shouldn't have anything in it by this time. No food, nothing, just essential things, light things, whatever they could be. And then you're there. So from there, if you're walking or you drove, you rode, once you're dropped, you can walk directly to the Jamarat. Because Rasulullah ﷺ from Muzdalifah to Mina, he went directly to the last Jamara. From Muzdalifah to Mina, the last one, that is Jamrat al-Aqaba al-Kubra, the one that is closer to, started to go to Mecca. There, in the spirit we mentioned yesterday, in the spiritual dimension we talked about yesterday, we cast those pebbles, 7 of them. And when we're done, alhamdulillah, we praise Allah Azza wa Jal, and we go back, not in Mina, we go back to our tents in Muna, or you go to Masjid al-Khayf, or you go to, alhamdulillah, wash, whatever. Now, what did I say? No, astaghfirullah. I say, I'm again thinking ahead. After you cast the pebbles, what do we do next? Since this is Hajj Tamattu, you would have already assigned somebody and paid the tickets in your group to offer a sacrifice. And you assume it's done, inshallah ta'ala. You assume it's done because usually you cannot have an exact time when they will do it for you. They may do their best, they may promise, but you don't know. You take a promise. Unless you want to do it yourself, you may do that. Go ahead. Do they still allow that to be done? Allah Ta'ala alam, but it takes people who have tried it. It's good to do that, but it's very challenging in so many ways. So many ways. Physically, health-wise, the ability to distribute that, and so on. Imagine that. Versus when they will do that and they have the responsibility to distribute the meat of that as well. And nowadays they have improved things to preserve the meat, alhamdulillah, and to send them to needy and the poor, not only in Mecca and in Saudi Arabia, but outside ila dhalik. All of that is something good to do, alhamdulillah. So, and then after that, we do what? You go do al-halq. You shave your hair. And then the spirit of that we have mentioned, and the details of that we have mentioned. And once that is done, alhamdulillah, you are released from your ihram, the minor release, as you mentioned yesterday. At-tahallul al-awwal aw al-asghar. We are released semi-completely, almost completely from our ihram, because we still, part of our ihram that is required is no intimate relationship with the spouses, yet if your spouses are with you. And anyways, one should be in a different realm of that, in those conditions. And also still no hunting. Again, we don't mention it because it's not those times anymore where people hunt game for food and so on. That doesn't happen. In accordance with Imam Malik also,